More mutiny as charter members caused dissent. The Jews also were not slow to involve and trouble the prophet and his followers. They tried to create disaffection among his people and slandered him and his adherents. They mispronounced the words of the Quran so as to give them an offensive meaning. They also caused their poets, who were superior in culture and intelligence, to use their influence to sow sedition among the Muslims. One of their distinguished poets, called Ka'b of the Bani and Nadir, spared no efforts in publicly deploring the ill success of the idolaters after their defect at Badr. By his satires against the Prophet and his disciples, and his elegies on the Meccans who had fallen at Badr, Ka'b succeeded in exciting the Quraysh to that frenzy of vengeance which broke out at Uhud. He then returned to Medina, where he continued to attack the Prophet and the Muslims, men and women, in terms of the most obscene character. Though he belonged to the tribe of Bani and Nadir, which had entered into the compact with the Muslims and pledged itself both for the internal and external safety of the state, he openly directed his acts against the commonwealth of which he was a member. Another Jew, Salam by name, of the same tribe, behaved equally fiercely and bitterly against the Muslims. He lived with a party of his tribe at Khaybar, a village 5 days' journey northwest of Medina. He made every effort to excite the neighboring Arab tribes against the Muslims. The Muslim Commonwealth, with the object of securing safety among the community, passed a sentence of outlawry upon Ka'b and Salam. The members of another Jewish tribe, namely Bani Kainuka, were sentenced to expulsion from the Medinite territory for having openly and knowingly infringed the terms of the compact. It was necessary to put an end to their hostile actions of the sake of maintaining peace and security. The Prophet had to go to their headquarters, where he required them to enter definitively into the Muslim Commonwealth by embracing Islam or to leave Medina. To this they replied in the most offensive terms, "You have had a quarrel with men ignorant of the art of war. If you are desirous of having any dealings with us, we shall show you that we are men." They then shut themselves up in their fortress and set the Prophet and his authority at defiance. The Muslims decided to reduce them and laid siege to their fortress without loss of time. After 15 days they surrendered. Though the Muslims at first intended to inflict some severe punishment on them, they contented themselves by banishing the Bani Kainuka. The Bani and Nadir had now behaved in the same way as Bani Kainuka. They had likewise, knowingly and publicly, disregarded the terms of the charter. The Prophet sent them a message similar to that which was sent to their brethren, the Kainuka. Then, relying on the assistance of the hypocrites' party, returned for a defiant reply. After a siege of 15 days, they sued for terms. The Muslims renewed their previous offer, and the Jews of Nadir chose to execute Medina. They were allowed to take with them all their movable property, with the exception of their arms. Before leaving Medina, they destroyed all their dwellings, and immovable property and arms which they could not carry away with them were distributed by the Prophet with the consent of the Ansar and the emigrants. A principle was henceforth adopted that any acquisition not made in actual warfare should belong to that state and that its disposal should be left to the discretion of the ruling authorities. Almighty Allah said, "And there is also a share in this booty, for the poor emigrants, who were expelled from their homes and their property, seeking bounties from Allah and to please Him. And helping Allah, helping His religion, and His Messenger, Muhammad. Such are indeed the truthful, to what we say, and those who, before them, had homes, in Al-Madinah, and had adopted the faith, love, those who emigrate to them, and have no jealousy in their breasts for that which they have been given, from the booty of Bani and Nadir, and give them, emigrants, preference over themselves. Even though they were in need of that. And whosoever is saved from his own covetousness, such are they who will be the successful." The expulsion of the Bani and Nadir took place in the 4th year of the Hijra. The remaining portion of this year and the early part of the next were passed in repressing the hostile attempts of the nomadic tribes against the Muslims and inflicting punishment for various murderous forays on the Medinite territories. Of this nature was the expedition against the Christian Arabs of Dumad al-Jandal, a place about 7 days' journey to the south of Damascus, who had stopped the Medinites' traffic with Syria and even threatened a raid upon Medina. These marauders, however, fled on the approach of the Muslims, and the Prophet returned to Medina after concluding a treaty with a neighboring chief, to whom he granted permission of pasturage in the Medinite territories.